Hey guys, it's TheFrXion or T110e4 here, and this is my third go now on this video. Today I've got a what to expect video for you. This was recorded on Sunday, I'm not sure, 31st of May, whatever, or 30th of May, not sure, didn't check the date. So today it is going to be the E4. Since you guys know, I've pretty much done all my tier 10 heavy tanks, what to expect videos. I don't have any more tier 10 heavy tanks, and probably the next tier 10 heavy tank that I'm going to unlock is either going to be the Moss or the 57 or the IS-4 on the Russian side. So I thought, why just not move over to the E4 or the E3? I'm gonna make the tank destroyers first because I don't like the artillery that much. I feel like a douchebag, and I don't want to go with the mediums right now because mediums are quite a lot of work. So as you can see, this is the E4. Let's see. We can directly compare this to the E3. We will not compare this to the E100 or the Waffenträger Jagdpanzer E100s. We're not going to compare them to those because I don't own them, so I can only say how statistically they're different, but I cannot give you any thoughts on the tank, how they perform, like, because I don't own a Jagdpanzer. Or I can show you FV1803 because I don't own it too. So we have to stick with the E3. We have to just compare those two tanks, and yeah, I think this is going to be a rather fast tank review. So pretty much the text in both of these is the same. So let's read it out. Tank destroyer T110e4. In 1954, a conference on future heavy tanks was held in Detroit. Alongside other advanced projects, the Chrysler Corporation suggested a new heavy tank or new tank on the basis of the TS-31. I have no idea what that is. TS-31 project. The main condition was that the tank should fit the Bern National Tunnel. So this tank was actually fitted, so made to be able to pass through the tunnel in Bern. This is Alps, the Alps, so it has to be rather small. You cannot put a big tank through there. And especially in 1954, that's a long time ago. It's 60 years now. Several constructions variants were considered, however the project was cancelled. So pretty much the text is exactly the same on the E3. I think it's the exact same on the E5. No, it's a little bit different. So, as you can see, you have 2,000 hit points in this tank. If you compare this to the E3 2050, it has 50 HP more, but that doesn't mean a lot. So one of the special things about this tank is going to be the turret. If you look at it first, if you look at a lot of the TDs, this is one of the tanks that has one of the tank destroyers that has a turret. Of course, that's not that rare anymore because the Waffenträger has a turret, the FV has a turret, and the E4. So you can see the trend is going on. I think it's just the armament that is getting bigger. So 2,000 hit points, you can take in quite a few shots with that amount of hit points, and you could still survive the battle in the end. 2050, yeah, it's pretty, it's actually normal, and it should be enough HP. Of course, it's not the 3,000 of a Moss, but 2,000 is a good number if you compare it like to other tank destroyers of that tier. If we look at the, I think the Germans have more HP. The Waffenträger of E100 has exactly the same. The Foch has less. I know that the Foch has about 80 to 50. So you can see you have a 150 more than the Foch and about 50 more than the 268, which is a really nice tank destroyer. So let's move on. Weight load limit. This tank is actually pretty heavy with 67 tons. It's small, it's compact, but it's really heavy. So the engine power you have on this tank is 875. Of course, it's a tier 10. Every engine power you get, it's you don't have to research anything. It's already all upgraded. It's tier 10, the last tier, and the final frontier. No, so the last tier, and you have 875 HP. That pretty much is about 35 kilometers per hour, which is actually quite good for a tank destroyer. Your traverse speed is 26, which is better than the E3's traverse speed with 24. Also, the speed is better than the E3, of course, but still, it's not that great. So if you get outcircled by the medium, you pretty much don't stand a chance, because there's also a specialty to the turret, which we will come to later. So the hull armor is 254 on the front, just like the E5. The E5 is 254 on the front too, 76 on the side, and 38 on the rear. The difference between the E3, E5 and the E4 is just this huge box back here. You don't have this huge box on the E5, but you can see they are from the same concept. The E3, on the other hand, though, has a 305mm up front, a really tricky lower plate, a really good upper plate, freaking troll cupola up there, and yeah. Unfortunately, this cupola is not as troll as the E3's cupola. This is one of the cupolas that is actually pretty weak. So the hull armor up front is pretty good. The lower plate, of course, is just like the E5, so don't expect much from there. Sorry, I just had to sneeze. And yeah, so the turret armor, no, actually, the side armor, this tank is just 76mm thick. So pretty much anything is gonna go through there. Don't show them your sides at whatever stake, and especially don't show them your rear. 38mm is no joke. I mean, this is 38mm. That's the worst thing you can end up with. HE shot from E5 can already go through there, and that's a really bad deal. So always up front, never show your side or rear, or rear, whatever it's called or pronounced. The turret armor, which is 203mm up front, is actually pretty good. People are gonna peg your gun mantlet and the side of your turret here, because a lot of them are shooting gold, of course. That's gonna go through there pretty much. It's not a 90 degrees angle, but still it's rather flat. So now the one big weak spot on this tank is pretty much the cupola. This is not the bouncy cupola of the E3. I have no clue. This cupola up here is like no. This is like it's no hit zone, but here it is a hit zone. I mean it makes no sense. Of course, it's gonna go through there, and it's not gonna be a good day for you. So you have a 152 millimeters on the side, which is actually pretty decent. 152 millimeters, you can still bounce some, but it is rather, let's say, it's rather rare that you bounce shots in your side turret, because the angling is it's just like a 90 degrees angle. And the rear turret is also 152 millimeters thick, but still the rear on the turret is just as flat as the side, even a little bit more flat. So don't expect to bounce anything. It's probably going to go through right there, since you are playing against tier 10s and not against tier 8s or 7s most of the time. Maybe you go up against some tier 8s, but that will show how dominant this tank is. The standard shell damage is 563 to 938. Most of the time you will roll about 750. There are a couple of times where I rolled 1000, and of course it happens, but it's rather rare. You will roll a lot of times 750, 800 in that area, but most of the time it's not 563, luckily. It's the same on the E3. The standard shell penetration is just the same, 221 and 369. We'll come to that later. I'll go in that more in depth when we look at the gun. Then rate of fire is actually pretty low. It's lower than the E3 with 3.53 rounds per minute on the E3 and 3.08 on the E4. So that means you'll be reloading longer than the E3. Um, the third traverse speed is really bad. If you compare this to the E5 or any other heavy tank, it's 32 against 18 degrees per second. That's really bad. So if you get circled, you really are going to have a bad time, because this turret is big and it takes a long time to get all the way over here. And one of the special things about this turret is that it does not turn 360 degrees, it only turns 180 degrees. That means you can only look over here and over here if you're stationary. If you want to look behind you, if you want to shoot somebody that's circling you, you will have to turn your tank. And that has to happen pretty fast, or else you're gonna really be in a lot of trouble. And if they track you, it's pretty much game over for you. Now the view range is just like any other tank, signal range just like any other tank, unimportant. And yeah, so let's look at the gun. This is a 155mm gun. It is only on the E3 and the E4. It has a capacity of 26 rounds. You can manually use AP, APCR, and heat, no, high explosive, not heat. The premium ammo is APCR, which is ridiculous. I mean, the pen on this tank is with APCR 381 to 469, and there's no tank on this earth that has that much armor. So pretty much, if you shoot APCR, it's gonna go through no matter what. No, still there are gonna be bounces if you aim bad shots, but still, APCR is gonna most of the time go through. But you don't really need APCR on this tank. AP does the job with 295 pen. Which is freaking ridiculous. 375 on the APCR, 90 on the HE rounds. Of course, that's not as much, but still, if you're shooting scouts, the back of E3s or E4s or E5s, you're gonna still go through there, and it's a lot cheaper than AP shells and the APCR shells. The dispersion at 100 meters is actually, if you compare it to the E5, we just have to see it fast. The E5, get the gun, the data of the gun. The gun dispersion is actually quite similar on 100 meters, just like the 120mm gun on the E5. It's actually rather good. The aiming time, of course, is 9 seconds more. That's about the aiming time of the IS-7 gun, which is critically, no, not critically, it's pretty amazing if you look at it. I mean, you have the same aim time as the IS-7, but your caliber is like 25mm larger, and that's gonna show you will roll a lot higher than the IS-7. So pretty much that's all the statistics of this tank. Let's see what you can put on this tank. So one of the main and very important things in this tank is a large caliber tank gun rammer. You need a gun rammer because really the reload is so long. So you want to have a gun rammer, and if you can also put an improved ventilation class 3 on it, so your crew is better, you have less aiming time. As you can see, we have a couple of things here. I have no clue why I don't have 6 cents on the tank yet on the commander, but I think I just forgot. And it actually works for me, so I'm not going to change this all around, because I just don't want to restart all the training again. So I have a vents, and I've gun rammer, and I also have wet ammo rack. This is the only tank that I have wet ammo rack, and that gives you a 50% ammo rack durability, and actually it really pays off. This tank gets ammo racked so much. I mean, no, it doesn't get ammo racked, it doesn't explode of it, but still your ammo gets hit so much that you have freaking, your ammo is just destroyed, and it takes so long to reload, like 30 seconds, 36 seconds, and that's just one of the things you don't want to happen. And if you have a 50% chance, it's like 50%, the half of it, that it's not going to be ammo rack damage, I would go for it, so I put it on that. You can see I have some APCR shells, 4 and 18 AP shells, and 4 HE. HE is pretty much for base reset if I really can't pen the tanks, like a Moss for example, that's giving me a really good side scrape on a building, whatever. I'm gonna use HE because I'm not always able to track the tank. Then APCR, of course, just for really bad situations where you really need to fire gold and every shot has to go through. That's of course not that much. And AP is just the most because AP is the ammo type you're going to be firing the most on this tank. And it's going to show that AP is going to do so much freaking damage. You can do so much damage with this tank, and the AP rounds do really, they pen almost anything with 295 millimeters of pen. So don't worry about it. So pretty much this is all about the E4, and I will show you some gameplay now. So as always, I have prepared two games for you. I have actually no idea what I did in this game. I just saved it under the folder for T110e4, what to expect, and I think it's something good at least. I don't think I uploaded. I put a really bad game in that folder. So yeah, actually sorry, I just fast forwarded there a lot. So we're on Pearl River, as you guys know. This map has been overworked in the recent patch, and now you can go into the D7 area. Of course, there's the test server that is running at the moment, and I'm gonna, of course, give you some videos on the test server. That is coming all in time, don't worry about it. I have a lot of things to do right now. So I'm gonna show you the strengths and the weaknesses of this tank, and this first game is probably gonna show you some weaknesses that you have. As you can see, my tank, the T110e5, as already said, can only turn its turret to the right or to the left at a 180-degree angle. So that means you cannot turn your turret 360 degrees. So you always have to turn your entire tank if you want to engage enemy tanks that are behind you. So right here you can see I was lagging a bit. I had no clue what was going on, and I took a shot at the KV4. A 690 damage shot, which was actually a really low roll in my opinion. So you can see I kind of noticed that there was WZ132 over here, and I actually should have turned to the right and engaged that guy as soon as he spotted. Unfortunately I didn't. I kept on shooting the KV4, and that's actually when this Chinese scout tank flanked me. The Chinese scout tanks, like this WZ132, has a 100 millimeter cannon, and this has a really good armament, and is not to be yeah, don't take it lightly to play against this tank. Now I was getting into a really bad position. You can see I'm slowly getting surrounded by a KV4, and the WZ is also putting pressure onto me. So what did I do first? I took out the KV4, which I thought was the logical assumption, since the KV4 has a 107 millimeter cannon or gun that can do a lot more damage than the 100 millimeter gun of the WZ. But what I didn't take into account is that this WZ player is going to be so cheeky and go after me. And this shows you, even though you have a turret, even though you can turn, there are just tanks that can get around you. And you can see I did make a huge mistake. I could not turn my turret, and he was behind me. I did not have the turning time, and that's when I decided I'm gonna get the hell out of here. What you have to do in this situation is to get out of here and try to lure this tank into a bad spot or into an ambush. And this shows you that this tank, if you're playing against medium tanks, don't let them ever get too close to you. You can see that he's just putting rounds into me, and now he's deciding, oh, I'm not gonna push him, I'm not gonna follow him. And that's when I decided I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna make his life a living hell. He didn't expect that, and I think that was a misplay by him. But still, he circled me. He should have followed me around. Luckily for me, he didn't. I pulled all the way back, and I got a really lucky shot. Clutch, took him out. And my reaction was pretty much, fucker. I was not mad. No, I was just a little bit pissed that he was able to do that to me. So you can see, even though you have the gun, you have a turret, you are still not invincible in this tank. And you can see the side armor and the rear armor, turret armor is really bad. And that WZ took full advantage of that situation. He played it very well. Props to that WZ player. So what I saw right here was, I was actually, since you can take the road now and go all the way over there, I actually tried to push the enemy that were sitting at A7 and A8, all clustered up together, and I thought I could flank them over here, but unfortunately there was a 50B that was trying to flank me, and actually no, I think he forgot that I was here, and he took one of the shots in 720, and you can see now I was angling my tank using the cover as best as I could, and the 50B, of course, he noticed he's not going to survive this, so he pulled back, which I can only say he was doing the right thing. Don't push E4, but unfortunately, right here, he just stood there. Actually, he could have taken me out if he had 3 shots. One shot would be 400 damage, standard damage, 400 damage per shot. And if he still had 3 shots, that would make it 1200 damage. He could have taken me out, but he pulled back, which could be a misplay. So right now you can see I was waiting for the Moss that was coming up the E7 line, or E7 point, and I did not want to push this 50B all by myself, especially now since I got hit by the T95, which really got me angry. You can see he pinned my turret right here. Beneath my turret, went right through there, destroyed my turret, and knocked out my reloader. And luckily for me, you can see the armor actually on this tank is quite reliable if the enemies don't aim correctly at you. And unfortunately, I did not survive that. So pretty much, this gameplay right here shows you this tank, even though it has great armor, if you play it, if you do make a wrong move, if you do play it a little bit stupid from time to time, it's gonna really cost you. It was still a victory. I'm gonna wrap this up real fast. It was a victory, and we still managed to beat them. But still, if you're yeah, that was one of the shots that was really sad. That was the worst shot of the M103. He tried to pen his back right there, but he actually failed pretty badly. So when you are in E4, only engage up close battles if you're going up against heavy tanks. Do not try to take out medium tanks. Don't try to hunt them, and especially if you're 2-on-1, try to pull back. You don't have the reload time and the turret, the 360 degrees of turret that you need to be able to destroy the enemy team. So you can see we won that match. It was actually pretty good. And now let's go on to the other game. If you have done everything correct in your E4, this is a game that should come out of that. Pretty much, this is one of those games where everything worked for me, and it shows you in the entire game. Now you will see what I'm talking about just shortly. So E4, since you have such a great gun, you have a decent armor, you have a turret that you can turn at 180 degrees. You should be able... Okay, I have no sound. Actually, I'm going to turn on the sound a little bit. I forgot in the last video, sorry about that. You should be actually able to do a lot of damage, and that's one of the things, the main things that you want to do in your E4. You want to do a lot of damage. So you can see we are on Sand River. This is definitely not one of my most favorite maps. There are a couple of reasons why, and you can see we are on the western bank. If you look at here's north, west, east, and south. And now we're gonna push the south. The E4, you should not go up north because that's pretty much where the mediums go. And they had two very good players, the E75 and the Type 61. The Type 61 is a Unicum, and the E75 a very good player. So actually I decided to push south because I had the feeling that there would be a high concentration of heavy tanks and medium tanks at their base, or at B0, as you can see. And now this is one of the things: if you have the upper hand, if you have the range, you have the time, and no artillery, especially no artillery, you can really make this work. You can see now I'm all the way back here, and you can make your gun shine. I hit that T110e4 prototype for 938. Of course, it was only a 719 hit, but 219 damage was because of a fire, and that was actually pretty nice. And you can see right here, one of the things that you have to keep in your mind is not to play too aggressive. I kind of expected the E75 to be in that spot because it's a very good choke point to defend, and it's one of those spots that is really hard to take out, especially if it's in an E75, a tank that has incredibly good armor. So you can see I am pretty much biting my nails out. I now load a APCR round. So one of the things is one of the things that you have to keep in mind in this tank is that even though you have a 295 millimeters of pen, don't just shoot randomly. Still aim for the weak spots, and otherwise you'll be wasting a lot of ammo on certain tanks. And right now, since the E75 was not showing, I actually just took a hit at the T69, and I think something hit me right there. That was a goal round of the T69, and pretty much I shot gold back at the T69. And you can see that they don't pen me. It's on the gun mantlet, but it's a T69. He fires heat. I think that's 250 millimeters of pen, and of course that's not gonna go through there. So this T69 was not playing too smart, or that smart. If you look at it in a second, he's gonna push out. Unfortunately, our CA1 pushes. He lights up a couple of tanks, IS-3 at base. He was AFK, whatever I bought. And one of the things is that I knew that there were a lot of tanks camping at base because XVM showed me that. And I actually did something really stupid right there. I wanted to take a shot at the enemy tanks, and I went over this ridge and made myself, or my big weak spots, the lower plate and the upper turret right there, the hatch. I made them visible to the enemy, and they just tracked me. And just to be on the safe side, I repaired my track, and I decided to push on this E75 and the T69. And since this T69 was just really annoying, I just took him out. You can see we are 4 tanks here down south, and we have not pushed the C75. And since I was too afraid to take in any shots, I stayed here. You can see my team up north was not doing as well as we were down south. I tried to get another cheeky shot right there into the E75 because I know that the turret is really flat at some parts there, but the gun and the gun mantlet really do block a lot of the shots, and those will be most of the time 0 damage shots, or pen but no damage. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. So right here, that was a really bad shot, but that was RNG at its finest. The E75, the low, and the T21, we are pretty much pushing. And right now I decided, you know what, since I can't take out the C75, I'm going to take some pop shots at the Moss and the KB5. Unfortunately, as you can see right here, I don't have the gun depression to do that, and I don't want to expose myself too much. So what do? I have to take out the E75. This is my main priority at the moment. And you can see I'm waiting for him to make a stupid mistake, and right there you can see that even though he angled his tank With the 295 millimeters of penetration, I was able to go through his lower plate. And while the E75 is not focusing on me, he's actually trying to shoot the low or the T21, and the low actually manages to get a shot into the E75. And now I load a APCR round to take him out. And with 345 millimeters, 375 millimeters of pen, you expect quite a lot. So he's pushing, is giving me just a little bit of a side, and I take the chance and I knock him out. That was pretty much one of the most important shots of the game. If that E75 would have lived on longer, we could have not pushed this side, and the E100 up north and the Type 69 could have eventually pushed the 69, STB1 and the M46 path. So right now it was more of goose hunt now, goose chase. You can see that they have a AFK Ice 3, which means a lot of damage, a KB5 that doesn't know what he's doing, and a T28 who is trying to take us out. And the T28 is of course no problem for our 295 millimeters of pen, and you can see that I'm bouncing those shots, which is actually pretty nice. And actually I didn't want to waste another round on the T28, so I chose to shoot the T25 instead to get as much damage as possible. And now you can see the T28 is actually shooting HE rounds. KB5 is pulling back. I'm waiting. I'm still targeting KB5. It's weird. Why am I still targeting KB5? I think because of the damage pull that I can get, and I cannot pen the Moss. And the Moss actually shooting high explosive rounds. So this game pretty much shows you if you have the chance of facing a team that is not as great as the team prior, you will have a glorious or great time in this tank. This tank pretty much can pen anything. It can pen a low, it can pen a Moss, and it really, if you play it correctly, just like here, you can gather so much damage. And if you do everything correctly, if you keep your armor protected, if you play smart and do not panic at some decisions, you can definitely do a lot of damage. So they still had the Type 61 and the T44 and the Moss left at the base. So I decided to push the Moss, since I kind of saw that the Moss was not really... He did not really know what he was doing. So you can see... Enemy armor is hit. You can pen the Moss at that lower plate down there, only there. Here. The cheeks, if he's looking directly at you. And on the sidearm, of course. So he still manages to get one in, and that's pretty much the one weak spot you have on the turret. If he gets a shot on the flat surface on your turret, there's a high chance of it going through, except if you are moving your turret a little bit. So the Moss pretty much... I got really unlucky there. I should have not wasted that round on him. Yeah, I should have waited. And now you can see the Moss is not really facing me. He's trying to take out the low or the T21. And I take the chance to put in another round on his lower plate to 795 damage. He still has about 400 health points left. And he wastes his shot. I can reload in time, and this is pretty much one of the things you cannot do with heavy tanks. You cannot pen the side armor of the turret at this angle. It's almost impossible. But with the 155mm cannon, it is quite possible. It's actually quite nice. So I did 7,392 damage. A lot of that damage was actually just because of the tanks, the enemy tanks that were not really trying to engage me, just really cowering at base. And you can see that this is just farming damage. Of course, I don't like all of these, or most of these games. It's just nice from time to time to get one of these games in. So pretty much the rest is just capping. The Type 61 manages to stay alive. I think the T28 knocks him out, and he does. So that was pretty much GG from my side, and this is the preview of, or the what to expect of the E4. And pretty much in the end, I can say the E4 is a brilliant tank destroyer. One of my, I think the E3 is a little bit better, but we'll come to that later on when I do the E3 review. And the E4 is, in my opinion, a real big competitor to the E3. Really dangerous, even though the armor is not as good as the E3's armor, and just really try to be careful with this tank, even though it says you have 254 armor up front, 254 millimeters. There are still a couple of guys that can easily go through you, and since everybody's shooting gold, there's a high possibility. What can I say to this tank? It is quite a lot of fun to play. The turret makes it unique, in my opinion. It's not like the Waffenträger where everything goes through the turret. The turret does withstand quite a lot of shots, but does not keep everything from penning you. The gun is excellent, one of the most, or the best guns in my opinion. And yeah, this tank is used widely in clan wars, and I can only tell you, I can only advise you guys to get this tank. It's a real good keeper, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, this was pretty much the preview, and no, not the preview, the what to expect video, and I hope you enjoyed. This was T110e4, and peace out.